Welcome to the next Massive Vlog. This vlog is gonna be different. As soon as I released the previous Massive Vlog, it became quite evident to myself that I needed to take a break from the whole vlogging thing for a little while. And while I'm sure I'm always going to be recording at least a few frames of video or taking a few pictures on any trip I do, it was time just to minimize those efforts. In early April, Steve Sargent, Kyle Kruthofer, and I decided to do a weekend trip to visit some of the Virginia amusement parks. The first stop was Funland of Fredericksburg, an FEC that none of us had been to. And while we were mainly there to ride the SBF spinning coaster, Steve and Kyle both spent some time playing games, and we took a little time to walk around and check out what this place had to offer. The next morning we headed to King's Dominion. As we were walking up to the front gate, I realized I did not have my wallet. It was not in my car, it was not in my luggage. So while Steve and Kyle went to the park to enjoy their day, I drove back to the multiple locations we were at the evening before, including the hotel, and the wallet was nowhere to be found. I spent the next remaining few hours just canceling all my cards before eventually making my way back to the park. Soon after, the hotel called me and said they found my wallet, so I drove back there and picked it up. Then decided to join Steve and Kyle at King's Dominion. And while I had been to the park many times in the past, this was my first time to pick up the credit on Toombeely. This was my first time riding one of the smaller S&S 4D free flies. And let me tell you, it did deliver. I couldn't even guess how many times I flipped on that thing. It was incredible. And I'm still trying to figure out when we're going to find a desert-themed version of this type of ride with the name Tumbleweed. Unfortunately, in line, I had a security issue with a guest that the staff at King's Dominion was spectacular at dealing with. The next morning, we headed to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, a park that is easily one of my favorites in the world. And while I decided not to vlog anything at the park, I did decide to record the POVs that you are watching right now. Now, Busch and SeaWorld parks do allow GoPro recording if the camera is mounted properly to the rider. It's something I've done at SeaWorld Orlando, I did it at Busch Gardens in Tampa, and Busch Gardens Williamsburg is no different. However, you do require a GoPro kind of card, almost like a license type thing, that you have to pick up at guest relations. When I was there was a lot of confusion, and I spent a lot of time walking around the park trying to find the answer of how to get the little card. Finally, a supervisor gave me one of the cards, and I was good to go and start recording on the rides. And while I was doing my absolute best to enjoy the day, it just wasn't like it used to be for me. It was clear that I also needed to take a break from visiting amusement parks for a little while. No season passes or anything like that this year. I just want to get back to a more kind of GP way of seeing parks, if that's at all possible. So after we got back from that trip, on April 18th, I got an email from YouTube stating that my entire channel was going to be demonetized for reuse. At first, I thought it might have been because I do some guitar playthroughs and there might have been some copyrighted music on there, or maybe some of the old Discovery Channel programs that I uploaded, but no, that wasn't the case. As a matter of fact, I don't know what the case was. YouTube suggested I keep deleting videos and then apply with a appeal video. So in all, I ended up deleting over half of the videos on my channel. YouTube did not like my appeal video, so they did not reinstate me. They told me in 30 days I could make another one, which I did. Now, I can deal with the fact that the channel wasn't going to be monetized anymore. I just wanted to know why, and no one at YouTube was giving me an answer. I went back and forth with them via emails, phone calls, chats, and no one could give me an answer. So I started making plans to delete the channel for good. July 4th was going to be the day that I was going to close the channel down. I woke up July 4th to an email from YouTube stating that my channel had been reinstated for monetization. YouTube did not see any reuse on my channel. During the time that YouTube demonetized me, I took a much-needed break from YouTube. I only spent a few hours at Kings Island this year just to visit my friends Josh and Julie, and my friend Dan from Florida and his friends as well. So while I had to put the park thing on the back burner, on the plus side, the Eyes of Freedom started gearing up and traveling once again. We started off our touring by a very, very near location to myself, the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus, and here's how that event went. Look who surprised
Hello.
me. My good friend Tina, she's here in town with the concert, and literally the venue is right on the other side of these buildings I'm looking at, but she walked in and...
Hi, Tina.
And then here, of course, there's Mike.
Yes.
But she tends to surprise me sometimes, so thank you for coming in.
Yes, definitely.
And you got to
Definitely.
see everything.
Yes, including that. That's what I wanted to see the most.
Really?
So, yeah.
Well,
Besides you.
oh, well, thank you. Oh, we've known each other for over 20 years, we realize. So
Yes.
anyway.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for coming in.
Yes, definitely.
After the event in Columbus ended, Mike Straley and I headed west to beautiful Lyons, Colorado, the location of our next event with the Eyes of Freedom. Lyons is also home to Anita Miller, the creator of Eyes of Freedom and Silent Battle. So this was to be a special event across the board. Mike and I stayed with Anita and her husband Rob for a couple weeks during the time of this event, and we had a fantastic time doing so. Take a look at the Eyes of Freedom in Lyons, Colorado. evenings of the event, we visited Robert Bello's studio in Longmont, Colorado. We had visited this place one time before, back in 2016, so it was great to see the progress of the metal sculptures that he is working on. And we had a very special guest with us, Sarah Duvall. Sarah is the mother of Aaron Reed, one of the Marines portrayed in The Eyes of Freedom. So she came to Colorado to spend time with us, and we're very glad she did. We had a fantastic time with her and can't wait for her to see the exhibit in other cities across the country eventually. After the Lions event ended, Mike and I had a few days off to explore the area, so we decided to drive north and spend the night in Gillette, Wyoming. The next morning was going to be an important one for me personally, and I couldn't wait. When I was 6 years old, my parents took me to see the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind in the theater. To say that movie changed my life is an understatement. Devil's Tower is something that I've wanted to see with my own eyes since I was 6, since I saw Close Encounters. Mike and I were only originally going to be spending a couple hours at Devil's Tower, but that changed once we got there. To start off, we walked the inner loop hiking trail around the monument. After completing the 1 mile inner loop trail, we enjoyed it so much, we decided, you know what, let's do the almost 3 mile outer loop trail.
Hiking the outer trail around Devil's Tower, Wyoming. We did the inner trail already, 1.3, it's 2.8. And I'm regretting a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. This is perfect. It's like room temperature out here.
It's gorgeous, so quiet.
70.
So quiet except for Mike's flatulence. How you doing, Mike? Ooh. It's incredible. We're only halfway done.
Look at this gorge.
Yeah. Whew. The scenery was spectacular. However, the last third of that trail, if you're walking in a clockwise direction, is mostly uphill. And if we're being honest, it kind of wiped us out. So we left Devil's Tower and went to a nearby golf course to have a quick lunch. And one of the holes had a random turtle on it. After our lunch, we returned to Devil's Tower to do something incredibly awesome, in my opinion. There is a gift shop and a campground that plays the entirety of Close Encounters of the Third Kind outside with Devil's Tower in the background. Being the absolute geek I am for that movie, I couldn't pass up that opportunity. There was a scene near the end of the movie where all the helicopters take off. It's kind of a makeshift base. That is exactly where we were sitting watching this movie. After the movie ended, we drove a couple hours northeast to Bowman, North Dakota. North Dakota is a state that Mike and I have not been to, so it was great to finally check that one off the list, even though we were only in it overnight. Listen to them all. They're all squeaking. And there's one right here. Hello. And then you have this. Colorado. It used to be, now it's gray. Look how filthy my car is. It's like Jaws. Steven Spielberg and Close Encounters. Dun 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 dun. The next morning, we decided to start heading back to Colorado. But first, we had a couple stops in South Dakota that I have never been to. And while I have been to South Dakota before, I never visited Mount Rushmore. That was to change this day. We also drove by to check out the progress on the Crazy Horse Monument. And before we left, we were invited to go to the top of Crazy Horse, but we had to decline because we had a Zoom meeting with our board of directors in an hour at the hotel. The next morning, Mike and I left Hot Springs, South Dakota, where we stayed, with 117 miles in our tank. We did not fill up before we left Hot Springs, as we thought there would be plenty of places on the way back towards Wyoming and eventually Colorado. This is Lusk, Wyoming. Lusk is 92 miles by the road, and it was the first town that we had arrived to from Hot Springs that had any type of gas stations, food, anything. I should point out that we had 0 cell service for the majority of that drive. Nothing. So if I did run out of gas, I wasn't going to be able to call anyone. I pulled into that gas station with 0 miles left to the tank. My tank holds 13.5 gallons of fuel, and I filled up 13.4, cutting it a little close. We eventually made our way back to the Denver area where we stayed with Mike's relatives for a couple of days, and we were gifted 2 tickets to a Rockies game. Now, admittedly, I'm not the biggest sports fan. I have attended some Major League Baseball games in the past, and they've always been interesting, but it's still kind of not my thing. However, I'm glad I went. Even though it was a very, very hot day, where we were sitting was in the shade, and we had a great view of the game. Where are we at?
Coors Field, Denver, Colorado Rockies game. It's losing Indians, losing Guardians. That way people know what I'm talking about.
Playing first base, number 9, Joe. Take the field, brought to you by Betfred Sports, where all new sign-ups gives you the tour.
To be honest, the game wasn't terribly exciting. There wasn't a whole lot of action that took place, and we think a lot of that was just due to the heat. Having said that, I am glad I went to the game. The next morning, we went to a park in Lyons with Anita and got to check out some of her artwork on display there. Mike and I headed back into Wyoming to start another incredible week. It had been a few years since we had last returned to Casper, and it was great seeing so many familiar faces. As with the first time we were in Casper, we were welcomed into town with another record-breaking motorcycle escort. This one started in Cheyenne and took us all the way up to Casper. So please join me in taking a special look at the Eyes of Freedom in Casper, Wyoming.
Governor's proclamation. This is something that Casper College, all of the different riding clubs that are here, Patriot Guard, anybody else represented here, this is something we're going to have forever. Governor's proclamation, Veteran Suicide Prevention and Awareness Day. Whereas suicide is a national public health challenge that causes immeasurable pain among individuals, families, and communities across the country. And whereas in 2020, suicide was the 8th leading cause of death in Wyoming, the 2nd leading cause for people ages 15 to 44 in Wyoming, and Wyoming has one of the nation's highest rates of suicide per capita. And whereas
the number of veteran and military suicides in the United States has exceeded 6,000 each year from 2008 to 2019, and whereas each death takes an overwhelming toll on family and friends. Whereas the stigma associated with suicide challenge prevention and treatment efforts for those seeking life-saving services. And whereas Wyoming is one of 35 states
taking part in the Governor's Challenge on suicide prevention, a partnership with the Department of Veteran Affairs to develop and implement statewide suicide prevention best practices for service members, veterans, and their families. And whereas suicide is preventable with education and intervention, to assist these efforts, Wyoming is developing a statewide training dashboard that will provide information and increase the accessibility to training across the state. Now therefore, I, Mark Gordon, Governor of the state of Wyoming, hereby proclaim June 18th, 2022 as Veteran Suicide Prevention and Awareness Day in Wyoming. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and seized the executive seal of the Governor of Wyoming to be affixed this 18th day of June, 2022. Signed, the Honorable Mark Gordon, 33rd Governor of the state of Wyoming.
yeah.
My name is Nick Whips and I oversee all of our military affiliated students here on campus. This event has transcended all expectations. This is the memorial that started it all, and Mike, Sean, Anita, whether you know it or not, you've set a course of excellence here at Casper College in how we serve our students.
Thank you for your service. And if you're a family member, thank you for your service because you shared in that service. I just got to hold the paintbrush. So when you go upstairs, I'll warn you, it's a thin place, and I welcome you to feel that. And look into the eyes of those men and see your loved ones, because they're standing there too. It is the deepest honor of my life, and to see people feel what I felt when I painted them couldn't be a greater joy. So thank you for coming. Thank you for loving. Thank you for showing me what the heart of Casper is all about. What the heart of Wyoming is all about. Because we're here, it's your hearts that are on display.
We haven't had our coffee yet.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Eyes of freedom!
One, two, three. I think it's gonna hit that car. Holy crap.
We went from like,
Look at all the stuff that blew over.
holy smokes.
Watch me drop it into the cake. During one of the evenings in Casper, we were taken to the top of Casper Mountain by Caleb, Casper College's president of Student Veteran Services. The views were spectacular from up there. We also went on the other side of Casper Mountain and decided to yell at the adjacent mountain. This is Casper Mountain still, right?
Yeah, we're just on the back.
This is Casper Mountain, that's Muddy Mountain.
Muddy Mountain? Okay. We're just going to yell. It doesn't matter what it is. You can just go, yeah, or whatever. I don't know if it'll echo, but I'm recording it. And if it does echo, that means it's absorbing our sound. So let's stand on these rocks. Okay, you guys ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeah! Yes, I did. I heard it. That's good for me. 3, 2, 1. Whoa! There's dogs barking. Not behind us, but in front of us. During another evening, our good friend Vincent took us to Rotary Park, where we did some hiking to check out the incredible views of the falls. We also were taken to something called Gravity Hill. It's a small section of road that if you put your car in neutral, you'll coast uphill backwards, or so it looks. So, okay.
Okay, so I'm in neutral, and uphill is that way, right?
What the hell? Yeah. Huh?
Look out that way.
What the?
Especially when you look left.
Yeah. Or what the hell? Okay.
Yeah. That was one of the 7 wonders of Casper.
Vincent and I continued back up to Casper Mountain and to the area that Caleb, Mike, and I were screaming at the night before. I don't know where we're at. We're on Muddy Mountain now. No, that's Muddy Mountain right there.
Yeah.
So what is the? Would this still be considered Casper we're on?
Yeah, I think we're still on Casper Mountain. Yeah, we're near Muddy Junction. We're near the highway that goes down to Laramie. It's incredible.
And it's chilly up here, is it not? See this? Hello? Anybody home? Now, my microphone on my phone just isn't the best at capturing like echoes, so I have altered this audio to simulate what Vince and I heard when we screamed at the mountain. If you listen carefully, it's windy. The echo is insane when we're screaming at Casper Mountain. So ready? 1, 2, 3. Woo! It lasts longer than our scream. Hold on, I'm gonna do like a King Diamond thing. Okay, ready? Wah! That is rad! Ah!
I did not hear that one.
What did we just dump this point?
Scream point.
This is Scream Point. So when I come up here next time, probably next year, and we scream, we'll say, Vince, let's take Mike to Scream Point, and he'll say, what the is that? So, it was great, as always, to hang out with Vincent again. He was leaving the very next morning for a large trip, one that I was originally supposed to be part of, but decided not to go on the trip just considering the many factors that took place in my life this year. I know he had an incredible time, and please check out his YouTube channel, Civilian Satellite, to see how that trip went.
Oh, I gotta save that one.
During the time I was back home for a few weeks, I had a quick lunch with my friend Eric. Here's Eric Bohannon. Eric lives in California, but he comes here, and we have been coming to this Steak and Shake when he's in town for how long?
Like 6-7 years now? Probably
Yeah,
longer?
yeah. I mean, it's crazy. If you've been a long time watcher of these vlogs, you've seen him before.
I happened to be in town and, you know, wanted a burger with my bud.
Yep. So it looks awkward because we're squished together in this booth, but it's the only way we could do it, and
It's
not
raining
going back.
outside.
It's raining outside, so we're drying it here. But it's good to see him, and tonight I'll be on the other side of the country, so let's go. And then Mike and I got back on the road. Actually, the skies. This was the first time I have flown since 2019, and getting back into airports and flying was interesting. The Waves Conference is held in a different city each year, and this is the third time we've attended this conference. Representatives from the many different colleges that have great veteran service organizations at their schools attend this conference, and several of the folks we have worked with in the past bringing the Eyes of Freedom to their schools. At the time of this recording, we were already in talks with several of the schools that we met at this conference to bring the Eyes of Freedom to their areas next year and beyond. There wasn't a lot of sightseeing to be seen on this trip. When we do conferences like this, we're pretty much just kind of stuck at the location of the hotel for the majority of the event. So we didn't really get to see much of Portland other than what we walked around the hotel. However, on the last day, Mike and I ventured across the river into downtown Portland, and were quite amazed to see such a big city, and it was like a ghost town. It was quite eerie down there, and we didn't stay very long. Mike and I...
What's better than the smell of urine?
Yeah.
Urine and heights.
Yeah. So Mike and I are exploring Portland, just doing a walk across the river to go into downtown. Needless to say, there's some very distinct odors in this area. But we're going to walk across this awesome bridge. It's one of those bridges that raises up, not a drawbridge, but one that lifts. And I've never walked across one of these. And here we are. Hey. One sec. We're crossing this drawbridge. We're taking a different bridge back than the one we went into downtown with, but I think this is the bridge that's in the opening credits of Portlandia. If you haven't watched that show, check it out. It's really funny. So that's where it divides. And there's Portland. Mike and I are spending some time before we're going to go see a movie. We're going to go see the new Top Gun. And we're in this really creepy mall where everything's closed. It's weird. We're getting the hell out of here. It's a very cool looking staircase. Well, we had some time before we have to get on a train to get to the airport, but we went down to a local theater and walking distance of our hotel and saw Top Gun Maverick. I literally have not read a review or anything. Very, very well done. Kind of cheesy in parts, in my opinion, but very well done. It sounded amazing in here, so I guess I would recommend it for sure. The Portland event was a huge success. We look forward to seeing what happens with all the contacts we made there. On the flight home, we were treated to some pretty incredible heat lightning that we were able to view from above. We weren't home very long before we hit the road once again, this time heading to Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. Another great event under our belts, and it was absolutely a blast to hang out with my friend Kathy, who I hadn't seen in many years. Finally, I had plans to visit another amusement park, Kennywood, a park I hadn't been to in many years. It was going to be even more special that my friend Yannick was going to be there. I haven't hung out with Yannick since the end of the 2019 tour of Japan. We had talked about meeting at Kennywood for months, and it was finally here. But life had other plans for me. So the next segment was going to be a rather fun one. Well, as it turns out, I had a bad friend revisit me for the third time. You know the bad friend that enters your life and says, "Hi, remember me? I'm here to make your life hell for a little while, but I'll be gone before you know it. And while you're with me, you can't hang out with anybody else. I'll be gone before you know it. And remember, it's not goodbye, it's till next time." Yeah, that friend. I now am under the realization that this friend is never going to leave. It's always going to be part of my life. And I should probably stop calling it a friend because it is not a friend. On 4 different occasions, I've had my defenses up, and yet here I am, talking about it the third time. I guess I don't know what point I'm trying to get at, other than that friend may enter your life and make your life hell for a little while, but that's just how it is. And there's always that chance, or 2 or 3, that it'll stick with you. So just keep that in mind. And I apologize to Yannick. I know he understands fully. I hope he had an amazing trip. But yeah, couldn't be around anybody for about a week. So that took place a couple weeks ago. I desperately needed to go somewhere. I needed to get out of the house. So I decided to pack a bag and drive to Vermont. It is a state I have been missing, and I had a couple weeks off before I go back on the road for work. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm in Ludlow, Vermont. Vermont is my 49th state. I had a couple weeks, and after being stuck in the house for over a week, I desperately needed to get out of here. I've been wanting to visit the state, and this was the next best thing. It is beautiful here. I just did the Timber Ripper mountain coaster. Keep in mind, it was pretty expensive. It was $17, and then you have to have a rider wristband. So total it was $26. Fairly long mountain coaster. They let a bunch of people go in front of me and let me wait so I could go fast. And that was awesome. But my time in Vermont is limited to just today before I start going home. This was a nice road trip. I love these road trips. Anyone out there that's done a solo road trip understands it's quite the mind clearing process, and I think I really needed this. So here I am in Vermont, State 49. Oh, this is cool. So for those geeks out there wondering, the anti-rollbacks are actually underneath 2 of these strips, not the 2 in the middle, but the thin ones holding the cross ties. The anti-rollbacks are on those. Here we go. Woo! Whoa! And that pretty much summed up my quick trip to Vermont. I wasn't entirely too happy with the way the GoPro footage turned out. I was using a head mount that I had never used before, but it's better than nothing. You have also reached the end of this MASSIVLOG. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new here, please hit that subscribe button, give me a like, give me a share, whatever you'd like. And for those of you that have stuck around to the end, or let's just be honest, those of you that have skimmed to the end, I'm going to include one more clip. This is of Steve Sargent taking his first ride ever on Griffin at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, which was also his 400th coaster. Enjoy the clip, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Take it easy.
Now prepare to enjoy the power and speed of the mythical Griffin.
Man, we got lucky with weather.
Oh look, it spells out Ohio.
Don't do that, I get stung again.
At this time, please.
Steve, what was that for you?
400 different coasters.
And what coaster is this?
Griffin, a very famous coaster, according to YouTube.
It's famous because of him.